What's the hardest thing for you to comprehend about the American culture? You Americans seem to have both the smartest and the stupidest humans on earth coexisting in your country. I think that happens everywhere, we're just louder than other countries in the media sphere. Entrée means main course. In the 19th century, when French terms entered the U.S., the word entrée meant the meal between fish and roast. This usually composed of a lighter meat like lobster or chicken. When America entered the 20th century, they cut out the heartier meals like roast and made lighter meats the focus of the meal. The word entrée carried on to mean the focus of a meal to this day. In Europe, entrée kept its origin of being the beginning of the real meal. America kept the word's place in a meal, while Europe kept the word's actual French meaning. Till? That has always bothered me, but now I'll feel better about it. Having to tip almost everywhere. It definitely makes sense at some places, but feel like we have to tip at the most random of places these days. It's so fucking weird. I was in a souvenir shop the other day where no real service was given. It wasn't even a restaurant. I was literally buying some scented candle or some shit, and sure enough, the lady flipped the screen around for me to sign and there was an automatic 25% tip added. I had to deselect it. To move forward and complete the transaction. We can use social pressure to earn more money, is annoying, but it's hardly without precedent. Americans love French fries, cheese, and gravy, but poutine never took off south of the border. Always found that odd. Well, yeah, we have chili cheese fries. I was going to point this out, or chili cheese tots. You are allowed to drive a car at 16, own guns and sign up for the military at 18. But alcohol, behold the devil's liquid, is only for 21 plus. There's a political history behind the drinking age. It used to be 18 not all that long ago. It used to be up to the states, and technically still is. Some states had a drinking age of 18, some 21, some did something different. Virginia had an age of 19 to buy beer and wine but 21 for everything else. Then the federal government made federal highway funding contingent on raising the drinking age to 21. So since the early 1980s, every state caved to that financial pressure. Rural Wisconsin allows you to drink at bars as long as your parents or guardian are present and they give the bartender permission. Good point. Several states still have parental permission exemptions of various types. Not just rural, it's all of Wisconsin. And there's legally no age restriction if your parents are cool with it. Zero tolerance rule. Who came up with that shit? The victim is the one who is fucked. Either he gets bullied or he gets a penalty for defending himself. Oh, that was so schools don't have to do shit about bullying. Edit. Lotta replies explaining to me that it's so schools don't have liability. I know that. That stops them from doing shit. All it's managed to do is turn the halls of every public school in America into a killing field. To quote my father, look, you're both getting suspended anyway. So someone starts a fight, you finish it. I wish I got your father's advice instead of mine. LMAO, just ignore them, they'll stop eventually. They in fact, did not stop eventually. Same. I should have just used violence. # How I defeated fascism with the power of love ## Chapter 1. The power of love. The first step in my journey was realizing that it is impossible to defeat fascism with the power of love ## Chapter 2. The power of incredible violence. That's why if someone attacks you at school, you fight back as hard as possible. If you are getting punished anyway, you might as well earn it. Exactly. You're getting punished either way. Might as well make sure you won't get picked on again. Ender Wiggin approves of this message. Unironically, this is where I learned that response. Turns out it works well, and that whole scene made sure I was careful not to go too overboard. I didn't want to hurt anybody, just make them stop. I distinctly remember an hour-long conversation with my principal who kept trying to go, and this is why you should just tell a teacher. 2. Which I kept answering, well, I did, and it didn't stop. So if you want it not to happen again, you've got to keep him from starting it. Since up until that point, I'd been the reasonable one who held back. The administration found it really frustrating to actually have to do their job. But they did it when it became easier than running in circles with me. This is a fact. On another note, we had the 3-strike rule, so 3 different kids got in a fight with the gay kid at different times and got him expelled. Man, we should employ teenagers to do policy research. For any proposed policy, have a 15-year-old try and figure out how it can be abused, skirted, and what perverse incentives it inadvertently creates. Dude, you want to break a system like that? Get some Dungeons and Dragons, or other RPG, nerds involved. We live * for the opportunity to find horrifying loopholes in systems. Water. Why are Americans so weird about water? I've lived here for 20+ years and it still makes no sense to me. So many people will drink Coke or juice or Gatorade all day. And if they do drink water, it needs to be ice cold or flavored with Mio or some shit. Like, just drink the fucking water. I've heard people say, "Oh, I don't like water." The fuck do you mean? Do you also not like breathing air? Do you breathe in Febreze all day? As the only one in the family who drinks water consistently, it's a sugar addiction. Nothing more, nothing less. As far as why we prefer cold water, if you look into it, cold drinks in general suppress taste receptors. So if you have poor quality water, which pre-20th century most of us did, it's going to taste better the colder you can get it. Eventually it just became a cultural preference. Primary water drinker here too. I has forgotten about the cold taste connection, but it now makes sense why I don't care if my water is cold or room temp now. Because the water where I live is better than where I grew up. I live in a state that is hot all year round. A hydro flask filled to the brim with ice lasts most of the day with regular fill-ups and is the next best thing to AC. Hearing the bald eagle screech every time I unwrap a slice of American cheese. American here, fun fact. That stereotypical screech you commonly hear associated with a bald eagle is actually a red-tailed hawk. Bald eagles do not make that sound. They make more of a weird, way less cool, chirping sound. I was too old when I learned this for the first time. Lobbying. Legal bribery. What the hell? Also, why do you have to do your taxes? If the government, in the end, knows if what you paid was what you actually owed, why not just tell you? Funnily enough, both your points are related. There are many things that could be done to make filing taxes much easier, but big companies like H&M, R-Block, who make their money from doing people's taxes for them, have lobbied the government for decades to keep it so complex. Intuit is the other asshole in that room. A lot of people follow and worship politicians like they're gods, flags and all that shit. In the UK, it's universally acknowledged that we hate all politicians pretty much equally. I think this really started to change around the time reality TV became a thing. Now our entire political process is reality TV. I say this as someone old enough to remember when pretty much every person in Washington was a serious person. Ronald Reagan, the guy from the chimp movies, elected in 1980. Having 2 weeks vacation, or no PTO for most. In my current country you have to take 2 weeks of mandatory leave in a row. Including public holidays, I get about 7 weeks vacation a year. Edit. This got way more attention than I expected. Reading through everyone's comments, it seems there is a huge gap between those with no to little PTO and those that get a decent amount. All of this is from the goodwill of the companies you work for, and not any federally mandated leave. Super rich televangelists like this Kenneth Copeland I learned about on Reddit. I'm American and trust me, most of us are aware that these dudes are scumbags. Removed. It is crazy. You'd think doctors with all their education and training and knowledge should be telling you what medication to take, but instead it's, ask your doctor about this medication. You'd be surprised at how ignorant some doctors are. My job is to basically teach doctors about the immune system. A lot of neurologists are still using decades-old drugs that are quite ineffective compared to what is new on the market. They aren't comfortable with the new drugs, which are all immunomodulators, because they don't understand them. I use slides that are far more basic than when I was teaching undergrads about the same concepts. My girlfriend's former endocrinologist refused to use any treatment, drug, or method newer than 20 years old. He said he was old-fashioned. My girlfriend has blood sugar that spikes and troughs randomly with no noticeable rhyme or reason, yet he didn't want her to get a sensor with long-term tracking because he didn't like them and didn't understand them. And it's like, how is he supposed to even begin to treat you if he can't establish any pattern behind your erratic blood sugar? Hearing that made me so incredibly angry. It is part of your job, although I know it's difficult, to make at least a token effort to stay current on treatments to *keep your patients alive. I once